Are Ohio State and Michigan on a collision course to be undefeated when they play the last game of the regular season? There's a couple of pieces that go into this, but the first thing we got to look at is the schedule for each of these. What's the gauntlet they have to run to eventually get to that game undefeated? I'm going to break down both these schedules. Let's start with the Buckeyes. Huge test this week at Penn State. Now, you remember, Michigan absolutely took care of business against the Nittany Lions, so we'll get a good gauge for what Ohio State does. We're going to break down that game this week on our live show, Tuesday, 3 Central, 4 Eastern. Subscribe. Make sure you're up for the ride for that. Then you go to Northwestern, play Indiana at home. Then you go to Maryland, and then you play Michigan at home. We're going to get to Michigan right now. So that's Ohio State's schedule. We're going to come back to that, put a pin in it. Here's Michigan's schedule. Rivalry game this week. So similar to Ohio State has that Penn State test this week, they have Michigan State test this week. And you're looking at Michigan State and you're saying, it's not going to be a test. We're favored by 3 touchdowns and some change. We're about to roll. I hear you. I'm not even disagreeing with you. We're going to preview that game here as well, but I'm not disagreeing with that sentiment. I'm just saying it's a rivalry game, and you and I both know in a rivalry game, all bets are off. Now, Michigan is going to be the more up to the task team if you're looking at from a paper standpoint, but let's just say that'll be a good test, right? Michigan State's going to bring their absolute A game, and we should, I don't want to say learn a lot more about Michigan, but it'll be an interesting game. We'll leave it at that. At Rutgers, Nebraska, get Illinois the second to last game of the year. Could be a ranked Illinois team, a team that has proven that they are a force to be reckoned with in the other side of the Big Ten, and then you finish at Ohio State. So, to be honest, I think their schedules kind of line up in a similar fashion in the sense that this week you have a team that, if you don't bring your A game, could test you a little bit. Now, Michigan State's probably another conversation. I'm just saying this rivalry game, bring your A game. Michigan State's bringing theirs. It's their Super Bowl. So you have a test this week, and then the second to last game of the year in a spot that will be very much so a potential look-ahead spot for both programs. You know, you play Ohio State the next week, you play Michigan the next week. Ohio State has a game at Maryland. Now, remember, Maryland pushed Michigan a little bit to the sense that the final score, it was about a touchdown. And Maryland also has a lot of NFL-caliber wide receivers on that roster. So we're not saying they're going to lose that game, obviously, but I am saying that's a game that you got to bring all that you can on defense because Maryland's going to score right around 30, 34 points a game is what they're averaging. We know Maryland has the juice. Also, Ohio State on the road, so that's going to be a game that you cannot afford to look ahead to put it simply. In the same breath, Illinois, like we talked about, they're only allowing 10 points a game. That's best in the country right now. Michigan can't afford to look ahead. You got to make sure you take care of business in that potential look-ahead spot for both these programs. So I think that's kind of interesting. So here's my ultimate thought when it comes to the shape-up for both these teams. A lot of people on the outside looking in at both these programs assume that the race to get to this game is like a 100-meter dash. Gun goes off, get out the blocks hot, run as fast as you can. It's an unimpeded 100-meter race to this game. I understand where you're coming from. I would say it probably resembles a lot more of a 400-meter hurdle kind of feel. That's all to say, there's going to be some obstacles they got to get past in order to get to this game undefeated. They got to be able to have the stamina to push through, to be able to get over a game against Nebraska for Michigan. I'm not saying they're going to lose it. I'm just saying Nebraska, what they have offensively, there may be a situation where you have to strengthen that resistance muscle a little bit. You have to push back. Same for Ohio State. We talked about Maryland. We talked about Penn State. Northwestern's a well-coached football team. Don't hear me incorrectly. Not picking them to lose any of these games. Okay? I would be very surprised, actually, if we don't get an undefeated Michigan versus undefeated Ohio State. I think all of us would. I'm just saying, don't be surprised to the same breath if we see either of these teams, you're flipping through the channels, and you say, that score is kind of close in the second quarter for either program. There will be some resistance that has to be exercised by both programs. So here's the keys for me, for them to get to be undefeated in these games. Be able to, like we talked about, strengthen that resistance muscle. There's going to be a time where the back's against the wall. Even more so, can you trend upward each week? Can you acquire more tools, more assets each week? Add something to your bag. Whether you get better in the front seven for Ohio State or Michigan, which would be saying something for both programs. Whether you get better on the back end, there has to be an upward trend. Because if you kind of plateau, there's going to be some other programs that continue to trend upward and you're going to run into issues. All right? Here's my main questions, though, for both these programs as it pertains to each program specifically. For Michigan, how long does it take J.J. McCarthy to get up to that elite level that you expect him to be at? Because that was the whole thought behind making him your starting quarterback, as opposed to Cade McNamara. The potential, the arm talent, what he showed on tape against lesser competition. Now it's getting to more of the meat of the schedule in the Big Ten competition. How long does it take for him to get to maximum capacity? Because against Ohio State, that's going to be necessary. That's going to be needed. In the same breath, is there a game where you ask J.J. McCarthy to win it for you? Hey, J.J., Nebraska's scoring right around 28-30 a game. We're going to need you specifically to do something else, to do something extra to get us to win this game. I picked Nebraska randomly. Don't get upset I said Nebraska, all right? Same thing for Ohio State. My question is, at the secondary level, maybe even more so, let's go a little broader, on the defensive side. I know they played lights out against Iowa. Iowa, they'll tell you they're still developing the forward pass. Now, forcing 6 turnovers, that is great. The Ohio State defense has been so much more improved. They validated a lot of things that we were hoping they would in that game and throughout to this point in the season. They played really, really well, that Jim Knowles defense. At the exact same time, the question I have is this who you are now? You've given me no reason to believe you're not, besides what we saw a season ago, but is this exactly the kind of Ohio State product offensively we're going to see the rest of the way? Because it's a kind of a reach comparison, but talk about the quarterback position. Look at Clemson, South Carolina. DJ Uiagalelei came out and had a little bit of a reversion to his 2021 self. Is that something we see from this defense? Do they revert at all to their 2021 tendencies? I would be surprised if we saw that, but it's something that I think is worth at least mentioning. So with all that being said, like we talked about, we're not betting against either of these programs showing up in this game undefeated. I just think that the course to get there is going to have more resistance than a lot of people on the outside are telling you. Because that's a good conference in the Big Ten. There's a lot of programs that play really good football and just happen to play in the same conference as Michigan and Ohio State, so it doesn't get as much, talking points. There will be games where it's close for an specified amount of time. Whether it's, hey, they pushed them in the third quarter, or whether it's, hey, that game they were down by 7 in the first quarter, whatever it is, this will not be a 100-meter sprint. It will, however, be a 400-meter hurdle race to get there. But you better believe when this game shows up, we're going to break it down. And we fully expect both programs to be undefeated, but excited to watch the race there. That's it for us here on The Hard Count. I'm JD Pickell. Nick Brake does the heavy lifting. You can help drive this whole operation by subscribing to the channel. So we go live Tuesday, 3 Central, 4 Eastern, Thursday, 3 Central, 4 Eastern. Would love to have y'all there. We do a live chat. We incorporate y'all. It's the best thing we do on this whole program. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, we're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.